Welcome to the Futsal First podcast. It's our very first episode dedicated to the fast-paced, exciting world of futsal. My name is Jose Galindo, and in this series, we will be delving in to bring you the full picture of futsal in WA and beyond, from conversations of the sport at grassroots level right through to the international stage. Throughout the season, we will be diving into topics such as player development and identification, tactics and coaching techniques, coach education, the local futsal scene in Western Australia, local, national and international competitions, opportunities and pathways, and of course interviews with players, coaches, referees and much more. In this inaugural episode, we're kicking things off, pardon the puns in advance, interviewing Nestor Fonseca, founder of Rockingham Cumbria Cumbrae Futsal Club and manager of the Cumbrae Sports Facility in Port Kennedy, Western Australia. Welcome, Nestor, and thanks for joining us on the Futsal First podcast.
Thanks, Jose. Thanks for the invite.
Okay, so we're here to discuss a new initiative by Football Australia, which is the state-based national team's futsal development program. Can you tell us about this program and why it has been set up?
Yeah, so the program was started last year by the Futsal's national team coach, Miles Dunit. So the aim of this is to identify players with the drive and motivation and quality to play for the national team and provide them some training at a state level, which can be a starting point before they can progress to national selections and national training camps. So obviously that last year we couldn't manage all the logistics, but this year we pulling it off. So we got a group of coaches that are going to be assisting with the program. We organize the venue, we organize the players as well, and we're going to be starting the program in June, hopefully.
Excellent. Okay, so you've mentioned there's a location assigned. So where will the program be running?
Yeah, so the program will be running at Cumbrae Sports Facility. So we're happy to support the program and the initiative and provide our courts to the program. The coaches will have Tyler Garner, myself running the men's, and we got yourself, Jose Galindo, and Tali from South Perth doing the women. So I think we got a great team of coaches, and I'm very thankful for everyone to obviously volunteer the time to provide this opportunity for the players to potentially make the national team.
Excellent. So obviously it's early days. What sort of feedback have you had from the futsal community?
Yeah, it's been good, positive feedback. Something that we've been looking to have here, a pathway for players to the national team. Fortunately for us, over the past few years, we had some breakthroughs in Tyler Garner, obviously in the men's, is our first futsal for a while, and just more recently the girls, Mariana and Zoe for the women's. So that's obviously a door that is open for players from WA to play at this level. And with this program, we aim to keep the door open and hopefully open even further, so for more players to potentially aspire to this.
Excellent. Now let's talk about the national teams. How important is it for the sport of futsal to have the Futsal Roos back up and running and the Futsal Matildas program start for the first time ever?
It's huge. Obviously, everyone's dream is to play for their national team, and unfortunately for futsal, it's been something that has been on and off of the past years. It hasn't been on the table for the women since I've been here, at least in Australia. So having that is definitely a huge thing for the sport. A lot of players dedicate themselves to futsal, commit the time, efforts and sometimes even money to be the best they can be in the sport. So and obviously having the opportunity to potentially play for the national team would just take things to the next level for all young kids now starting out with futsal. youth players is I believe will be a huge motivation for them to see that they could potentially represent the country.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree with that, Nestor. I definitely have found that myself with players that have seen that pathway open up, and you can just see how excited they become, and that there is something bigger that they can aspire to and work towards, and have the opportunity, like you said, to represent their country, which is huge. That's really one of the biggest things you could do as an athlete, right?
Absolutely. Also, just to mention that the location we're in, obviously being in Western Australia, we're quite isolated to the rest of the country, and making things like this potentially play for your national team a lot more difficult when, obviously the federations and everything is based in the eastern states. So having these opportunities now for West Australians is just huge, So to know that you can play at a local level here, work hard, commit to the sport, and potentially make the national team is just unbelievable.
It's huge. Look, I've always endorsed travelling for futsal players, in particular at club level. With travelling, what you find is it gives you a new perspective. You could literally be the all-conquering team or club in your state, but when you travel, you sort of realise just the levels that are out there. And it's always been something huge that when players come back, they see the level that not only the sport can achieve, but what players what levels they're performing at, coaching, different tactics, and what levels they're performing at. And of course, this national pathway is exactly that. Yeah, I mean, as an example, Futsal Matildas have travelled to China for the latest international competition, and how have you found their performance over there?
Yeah, it was a great tournament. You could see the levels internationally. These countries have put some really good futsal teams there. You can see there's a lot happening behind the scenes, and it's just great to see these opportunities for women to play at an international level. There's going to be some massive progress, I feel, in the next few years for our women. Obviously, they just started. It's the first time they get together. They play at this level internationally, so I'll see great potential. We'll do well, and I thought it was a great tournament to watch. See the same setup that has been going on for men now with the girls is unbelievable.
Inspirational, and like I said, as a coach, as a player, as basically anyone that loves the sport of futsal, to see futsal played at that level, and to provide that perspective on where it can be and how professional the courts, the refereeing, the special effects. I mean, it just provides such a different perspective for us. It raises the bar, doesn't it, for us to strive to improve? Hence why this program is so important to be able to help us in that journey.
Exactly. So, you can see that such a high-level tournament. So it just really connected the dots. You got these high-level tournaments, potentially qualifiers for the World Cups, which is a global event. And then, coming into the state, national level, you got nationals. And then you got at a state level, you got programs like the one we try to put together. It's just really just connecting all the dots and creating that pathway for players to make it to the next level.
So going back to the program, so what would the program consist of specifically in terms of its structure and its content?
Yeah, so the structure of the program, we try to make it a program that is not or is as regular as it can be. Obviously, at the minute, we got certain things to consider like football and another commitments. So we're making it every 3 weeks program where the players will be asked to come to a session, and we're going to take them through some concepts that Miles and the futsal coaches will send us. And that'll be the idea of the sessions, just to make sure the players are exposed to the concepts that are developed and seen at a national team.
In terms of players, how many players do you expect to be a part of the program for the men's and the women's?
Yeah, so we have a number of 25 players roughly being invited to this. For these, some of them would be identified by us. Some of them we've been in communication with coaches from different clubs to see what they think players have the right motivation to be involved with this, and obviously they work with the players on a regular basis, so they have probably a better idea what who should be there or not. And but 25 is roughly the idea. We'll aim to do the same separately with goalkeepers, but at this stage, is we just want to get the men and women started and see how we go first.
So you've mentioned 25 players, and from my understanding, we've got a lot of interest in the program. So how do you see players being selected or added into the process, or perhaps removed from the process? How do you see that sort of happening?
Well, I hope it's going to be an issue for us. For what I heard in other states, sometimes you don't get the consistency of attendance at sessions, or you get an average of 15 players and all that. So so if we end up having too many players, consistently attending, and potentially more players wanting to be involved with this, we are flexible to. We should be flexible to potentially have more sessions. I'll say it, potentially break the ages down. If you have players that are younger, we could potentially do some youth sessions, and then have a youth group and an adults group. Things like that can be looked at. I suppose the main concept of these, or the main idea of this, is to be a learning opportunity for players and even for coaches, and just provide that connection with the national team coaches and staff, to make sure that we create and we strengthen that pathway. So so it is intended to be as inclusive as possible. Anyone who wants to invest themselves into futsal, they know they could potentially participate in this.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned, you did touch on it before. So how important is the dedication level, the commitment level of the player in their selection for this program?
Well, it's huge. Obviously, we went through the list of players and potential names that could be involved in these, and a big part of that is the commitment that we can see. In terms of how much they play at a local level in the Superliga, if they play F League, how consistently they played, how much training they having, have they done any trips recently with nationals or any other futsal opportunity out there. And those things just speak for themselves. Obviously, commitment is a big thing, and really is the only way you could potentially realistically aspire to get to that level, is if you spend, if you commit and dedicate your time to that. Especially, as I said before, being isolated, it just means also we have less opportunities to compete with other states, with other people that could help us reach, grow our level. So the only way to bridge that is just with commitment, training more, playing more. So yeah, that's essentially that.
Now, I've seen the clubs have been involved, and the feedback from them has been absolutely fantastic. So how do you see the program sort of working with the clubs in terms of them providing potential players for the program, or assisting with the program sort of moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's having the clubs involved is huge. Obviously, the clubs is where the players play and train on a regular basis. And it's really where the players will translate the concepts they'll see here in this program. I suppose the program will be mainly about just providing the concepts, providing what's required, and then they can go and translate it into their clubs at training, into the games, and the local league games at their clubs, potentially go and showcase themselves at a national level at nationals. So having the clubs involved is huge, is very, very important. And we obviously want this to be an opportunity for everyone to be involved at some capacity, and it's about the players. It's just all about the players, and creating that opportunity for them, regardless of where they play, the clubs and all that. We want to make sure coaches are also involved in this program, and obviously as we get going, we'll probably find a way to make sure that works well. Initially, we got some people involved, but we'd like to make sure this is something that can expand to more people and more coaches. Things like the course that is coming up, obviously, is a huge thing. It's a great opportunity for coaches at all club levels to upskill, and the combination of all these things, it just means there's more opportunities for players. or more chances for players to make the national team. So it's definitely a group effort.
Let's touch on the course actually. So it's an AFC level 1 course, never been held in Western Australia from my understanding, which is huge. So for Football Australia to be sending an instructor over, tell us a little bit more about that and for people to look into it.
It's huge. It's huge. We've been trying to get a course here for years now, and we finally been able to nail it. So I just got confirmation a few days ago that the course will go ahead, which is huge. We never had a course of this caliber here in Western Australia. Is obviously the first step towards the accreditation for AFC and FIFA internationally. So having this course here is huge. Due to the cost, it's very hard for people to go and do it in other locations, whether it is interstate or overseas. It's a 1 week course, so it's very hard to get to do it. So having it here definitely helps. And it's a great opportunity for our coaches and our futsal to take our knowledge to the next level. At the moment, the only coach that has got that course here, we got 2 people actually. One is yourself, Jose, and the other one is Faris Narani, who is no longer coaching. So obviously you can see that we need upskilling. If you compare that to, let's say, Sydney, there'll be about 100 people that go to level 1. I'll say I don't know how many, and there'll be quite a few that'll have level 2, and also quite a few that'll have level 3, and it'll be the same in other states. So that definitely is something we need to work on. Just getting more qualifications in our state.
Totally agree. Coach education for myself is huge, and I will definitely promote that to everyone that's willing to learn or willing to listen. I myself did the AFC Level 1 back in 2019, I believe, and without it being held in WA, my only option to have it done was to fly to Melbourne. It was a 6-day course back then. I absolutely loved it. I was exhausted by the end of it. It was absolutely fantastic in terms of the networking that you do with other coaches that are there and the instructors, the learning, the concepts, different ideas, little things about how other coaches do things. Of course, when you're in such a tight group at the time it was a 6-day course. Obviously, you get to know each other really well, and we created a OneDrive where coaches put all their information, and we're still sharing it, 6 years later. So absolutely fantastic course. I stress to everybody, if you do get the opportunity to have a look and sign yourself up, if possible. I myself am redoing it because I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to be in the room with so many great coaches, and of course Bruno's coming over to run the course. So some great opportunities there, right, to benefit and grow as a coach, which as coaches we have a responsibility to keep learning, to pass that on to our players, to our clubs, to our members, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, look, a huge thing for me is I've been looking to do my level 2, and to do your level 2, that's provided its own challenges, which are normal. But the more coaches we have in WA that have got the level 1, then all of a sudden we start increasing the chances of, guess what, there might be a level 2 coaching course presented in WA. So it's something that I'm excited about. It might save me having to travel for my level 2, but yeah, it's great. Now, what are hopefully some of the potential opportunities that you see with that level 1 course being held at Cumbrae? Do you see any opportunities there with the program we're discussing in terms of getting some of the players there, perhaps being exposed to?
Yeah, absolutely. We would like to have the opportunity or use the opportunity to get Bruno, who is the assistant coach for both the men and women of the national teams, to see some of our players here. Maybe hopefully run some camps, as well as watching some games, whether it's league games or exhibition games. So yeah, definitely we would like to make the most of Bruno being here, and if we can, we try to organize some other initiatives so he can at least have a closer contact to the players that potentially could be in the national team setup. we'll confirm more as we get closer, as we try to work out locations and venues, and obviously he's going to be running a course for 5 days straight, and just try to work out the best for the
Yes.
situation. Yeah.
Look, one thing I will say was it was quite uh, us futsal community. We have a passion for the sport, and I found by the end of the 6 days, I was exhausted, but I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Look, the course has changed. It's a 5 day course. I believe it's 4 days plus an introductory level on the Monday. But when I did it, there was no online modules. Whereas I've had a good look, and it looks like there's a little bit more online. So that's something. But I stressed everybody, if you do get the opportunity to increase your coach education, please do so. Now I'll bypass back to the program. One last question I have before I move on, Nestor, is how do you see players being notified in terms of their selection for the program?
Yeah, so the notification of the invites will be directly from Football Australia. So they'll be sent a letter inviting them to the program, and giving them some initial details about the location and the dates and times for the first sessions, and then from then on, obviously we'll keep communicating, and as we would like to make this possibly an ongoing program, or as ongoing as it can possibly be. But yeah, they'll be notified directly from Football Australia.
How important do you think it is for, say, players in Western Australia to be coached to the national team requirements and expectations as per this program to assist in their potential selection for the national team?
Yeah, it's huge. We go back to education, and when you go through these courses, there's obviously you learn criteria, you learn concepts that therefore coaches will pass on to players. So what we getting from Miles and Bruno and all these guys is essentially what they also is stipulated in the in the coaching standards nationally and internationally. So going back to coaching, the more coaches we have here with qualifications, the easier will be really eventually we probably won't need this program once we have enough qualified coaches with the right concepts all passing them through. I don't think we'll need this program, but obviously at this stage it is needed, not only here but the country is still needed. So education is huge, I think, and it'll be the alternative to this, to make sure that the players are exposed to the concepts, the basic concepts. We're talking about just the basic concepts that the individuals need to know, but to play at that level.
Agreed. So I suppose if they were to get selected, as an example, to attend a player selection camp, or perhaps to go and attend another event, that they would be better prepared.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's just knowing the concepts. I'll say this. I suppose it's nothing more frustrating than getting a player at a national team camp that is a good player. He can pass well. Is individually good, but doesn't know any concepts of the sport. Any concept defensively, or specific things about the sport of futsal that are outside of being a good player in terms of controlling the ball well, being skillful, and all that. And this is what this program aims. It's just to provide a guideline for players of how they've been assessed. Now obviously there'll be other things that we can't really script, like a player that has got outstanding scoring ability. You can't really script that. If a player is good at scoring goals, you put the ball in the net. You can't change that. But there'll be other things, and there'll be lots of things really that a player will need to also know if they want to play at a national level.
Yep. Yeah, totally agree. Every coach may be looking for different things, or different programs, looking for different facets in players. So the ability to be able to understand sort of what the program or the coach is looking for before you attend will help you potentially perform better a lot sooner.
Absolutely. I think one of them is for example, fitness. Fitness is a big part of futsal, especially internationally. You could see just recently those girls that playing in the Asian qualifiers, they're all very fit, and our girls are fit. and you could see some of the other countries, the girls are super fit. That's just the standards of fitness is huge. And I feel is one of the things that needs to be understood by players. If you want to play for the national, you just need to have a minimum required of fitness. Because I suppose your talent is not gonna take you that far. Unless you have these minimum requirements for fitness. And that the only way to achieve that is obviously with training. You need to commit yourself to that. You need to train more. It's not going to happen if you just play once a week and train maybe once a week. It's not going to be enough. So hopefully this program can provide that sort of benchmark for players to know, okay, well, this is what I need to do.
In your opinion, drawing on your experience at club and international level, how important is it for an elite futsal player to be an athlete or to meet minimum physical benchmarks?
Yeah, I think it's huge. It's crucial. I mean, at any level in any sport, really, that's possibly one of the main things that differentiates an amateur player and a professional is just their fitness levels. So in futsal, is just as important in any other sport. So it's something we definitely need to step up. At least here in Western Australia, is the conditioning of players. You have players like Tyler, for example, he's always been an athlete, and it's been one of his main strengths, his physical ability, and his ability is not because of he was born like that. I assume it's just his work ethic and his commitment to training, what's taking him to that level. So yeah, fitness I'll say is probably the number one requirement. People need to be at their fitness level to aspire to be at that level.
Look, I'll have to chip in with that. I firmly agree. I mean, we're currently in our pre-season at the moment, so we're not running team training sessions. I'm running more individual training sessions, and I've got individuals coming down for tailored programs. And what I'm focusing on at the moment is physical conditioning. And I can't tell you the players who are perhaps training 3 times a week in outdoor and playing their outdoor game, and they're struggling with the session, loving it because they're being challenged and they understand that it's obviously beneficial to them. But it just goes to show that the conditioning for a futsal player is different to other sports.
Absolutely, it's completely different. Obviously, a lot of players that will play at that high level in Australia are also playing football, and it's something that it's just like that. And I feel it's fine because at least they getting some extra training at outdoor, and as long as they also training futsal and complementing that is, as your body learns, and then your body never forgets. So once you start training, you train. Even if you stop for a bit, you focus on football. I think that there's something that will still be recognized, and you'll be able to show it at that level. So just try. I think just accumulation of training. Obviously, ideally, you have players just training futsal and just focusing on futsal and training every day if possible futsal. But realistically, you'll find that a lot of the good talent are also players that play football, and they train football, and managing that balance is probably the second best option.
Well, traditionally in WA at least, most of our clubs train usually once a week. Would you agree? So the opportunity for these players to be able to get a second training session, obviously depending on how sort of often that training session is, but that's just going to add to their physical conditioning and assist them with the futsal. Would you agree?
I agree with that. Absolutely.
So we're both involved in the Football West state teams. Yourself, of course, as the head coach of the Open Men's, and myself as the head coach of the Open Women's state team. What are your thoughts on how the men's state team represented WA at the latest nationals in January?
Yeah, it was a good tournament. We did quite well. I was happy with the outcome in the end. We made the grand final. Unfortunately, we went down 2-0 in the grand final against a Victorian team, which, by the way, we beat them in the first game. So it was quite disappointing to do so well in the first game and not having enough in the last one. But that's how the sport is. But overall, it was a good tournament for us. It's the first time we actually compete at that level as a state team for a while at least, and to be able to see the players performing against most of them futsaroos and people that have played at a high level for years, it was quite rewarding and pleasing. We versed the two New South Wales teams. Fortunately, we versed only one Victorian team, but and we versed other teams like ACT, and we did quite well against all of them. We had a very young team. The average of the players were probably about the 22 years of age. Young team. The preparation, we did what we could. It was not the best, but I feel we prepared as good as we could, and we managed to show that we have potential here, that we got quality players, that we got people that can potentially aspire to more. So this year we're trying to prepare better, hopefully get more players involved, create some competition in the team as well. I think it's crucial for us to take that next step, and then hopefully like that we can go next year and try to go a step further.
Agreed. Yeah, I was there for that grand final and I saw many of your games, and the WA men's team performed extremely well. Definitely rattled a lot of cages over there. In terms of our women's side, it's the first open women's side that we've sent over representing WA. We made the semi-finals and we took some big scalps along the way. We performed extremely well. We had our limitations though, like you mentioned, just in terms of the preparation. How does perhaps potentially our isolation that we've touched on previously in the podcast in relations to our distance from the nationals and how it sort of contributes to the cost and those sorts of things, how do you think that has affected us in the past, and do you think it's something we can overcome?
Yeah, that definitely obviously doesn't help. We completely isolated to other states. You can see at the minute that you have players currently playing in Melbourne, players from New South Wales playing in Melbourne regularly, at the men's level at least. I'm not sure the women's. So obviously they're much closer. They can do things together much easier. For us, it's a lot more difficult, and to get that exposure, sometimes it requires just players to take that initiative. You go back to the players that we have in the national team, like Tyler, who's always been open to any traveling opportunity possible. He moved to Melbourne for a period also to get some exposure, some experience. And for the women's, it was the same. Like Mariana has been playing for a while. She's been open to any trip opportunity. She went to Thailand with South Perth years ago. Try to get us out there as much as possible. Zoe went to Italy, just out of a comfort zone to go and learn something. You compete, and that's really something that's helped these players to get to where they are now in the national teams. I feel that's something that we need to try to work out. So how we can get more exposure, more competition at least interstate level. Maybe try to connect with Asian countries that are closer, like Indonesia is only 3 hours away from here. So there's initiatives that we can potentially look at to bridge that and to hopefully expose the players to more competition. Competition is huge. It's one of the things that we, in my view, we're lacking, is just to have more constant competitions at a high level, obviously.
Well, you're right. We've got some fantastic players here in WA, and they definitely deserve to have the exposure. I've got to say the efforts from Football West, in particular Alex Navatsas, is doing a great job. And obviously Football Australia with this program, I mean, that's definitely going to go a long way in helping our players develop and opening up those pathways.
Yeah, it's not only that, but also inspiring more players, inspiring younger players, that are just joining the sport, and they can see there's a pathway. They can visualize themselves, with other people that are up there already. It just definitely grows our chances to anything, really. So I think this program in particular will be benefit our whole futsal community at that state level, at a club level, at a national level as well. So yeah, very excited about this.
So how do you see the state-based, it's a long name, so we're going to go through it. How do you see the state-based national team's futsal player development program? So how do you see that assisting the Football West state team programs moving forward?
Well, that's obviously the state teams for me are the opportunity for players to showcase themselves, to go and show the national team selectors that that they can perform at that level. Especially for us being so isolated, it's probably more difficult than other states for coaches and to be followed. But the nationals are the place to be. If you want to play for the national team, if I was a young player looking to play for the national team, the nationals are it. This is where you go and show yourself to the world. As said, so it's definitely going to help the state teams having this program. It will make much easier the job as well in terms of selecting, in terms of preparing the team. I suppose just taking the players through these concepts that will be required at nationals. So great opportunity. Again, it's about creating pathways and consistent pathways. So now we have nationals on the cards consistently. We'll have a national competition on a year basis where all states send the best players to compete against each other, best teams. So and at a state level, you have now a program that is developed by the national team coach, and again, as I said before, just connecting the dots. You'll touch to each other.
I was going to say connecting the dots was my very next sentence. Yeah. So look, from a player perspective, we all know that the trial process isn't ideal for any selection of any sport, of any team at any level. Sometimes players are unable to attend a trial process. Sometimes maybe they're not well, maybe they're injured, perhaps they just don't have a good day. Perhaps they're on the wrong side. Perhaps the coach isn't looking when they do something great, and maybe all these things can happen for a player. So with the program that we're looking at implementing, I suppose the benefit for the players is that they are able to show their abilities, their potential, their performances, their characteristics over a longer period of time. They've got more opportunity to be able to show what they can do. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in creating the pathway also means once the players know what they expected, what they need to do, I suppose, in terms of the specifics of the game, then they can go and show it at their clubs, and they can show it on a weekly basis, at their clubs. And obviously they have further aspirations. They can come and try to do a nationals as well, so the opportunity is there. It's just creating the pathway. Obviously, selections are always difficult because, you can only field so many players. In case of nationals, there's only 14 players that can travel. Same with the national teams, only 14 players that can go and represent the country. So selections always need to be made. At this stage, at a state level, for example, we didn't have to do that. So last year we didn't need to select anyway. It was essentially a team that we put together. But I think it is important to have competition in these teams, so actually selections can be made. I think we're talking about competition, that we need more competition, and this part of that, at a state team level, to have players competing for spots rather than who is available.
Yes, correct. That's always been a challenge, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose from a coaching perspective, as a coach, you get, I suppose, a better understanding of a player, sort of obviously different facets of their performance or their attitude, their personality, how they gel. You get a better understanding of that when you can sort of see that over a longer period rather than just a one-off day or a couple of sessions where perhaps they're out of their comfort zone or stuff like that. So I firmly believe the state-based national teams futsal development program is going to benefit the state teams. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And like you said, it connects the dots, doesn't it? The players will see a pathway. And as you mentioned, the state teams that represent WA or in our case, WA at the Nationals, they will be a very important factor for the players in terms of their exposure on the national level.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. So, what we wanted is a pathway. What we wanted is a clear channel for players to see how they can progress in the sport. And this is what is happening. I feel now is at least as compared to when I got here 16 years ago, there was no pathway for anything. Now you go clubs competing consistently in established leagues that run all year round. They have their coaches. You got now coaches being qualified at an international level, if we can say, and now you got state teams selected to represent the states and compete at a national level, and then you got now national teams that have connections with their states and try to get the best players in the country competing at an international level. That's what we wanted, isn't it?
Yep, we do. Okay, so Nestor, this is our first episode, so we're starting a tradition. I'll be finishing each episode asking our guests the same question, and I can only imagine that you've got countless moments, but what are one of your favourite moments or memories in futsal?
I suppose it's many of them. My interest now is in the development and growth of the sport in WA, now state. This is my home now. This is where I chose to live with my family, and seeing the sport here growing and taking it to the next level is my interest and passion now. So I'll say probably the first time Tyler got selected to the national team is probably my favorite moment for what it represents. For the whole state, having for the first time in a while a player chosen to play for the national team, for me was definitely a moment. Obviously, Tyler is someone that I coached for years, and that was also an added factor. But it's just what it represents for our futsal here, and a door that opens for the first time. Obviously, that was backed up later for with the girls, but that was the very first time we had a real national team. Sorry, we had a national player in the national team, and that was a special moment.
Totally agree, Nestor. I'll every episode I'll be providing my own special memory, or one of my countless memories of futsal, and I am planning on having, if she agrees to it, of course, Mariana Tabane on the podcast in a later episode. So I was saving that moment for that time. But yeah, as a coach, and I don't want to go into it too much, but as a coach, it's a huge moment just to be a part of that journey, isn't it? I mean, I was fortunate enough where we had Mariana Tabane selected for the Australian national futsal team, and Judy Connolly selected for the Philippines national futsal team. And you, as a coach, you can't explain just what sort of feeling overcomes you when that happens. You just it just puts things in a massive perspective. And of course, as coaches, you understand that you only play a very, very small part of their journeys. There's so many other coaches, people, admin staff, family, of course, the player themselves and their friends and teammates and all sorts of people that play a part. But I that resonates strongly with me, and I'll get into that memory in a later podcast. I'll share one of my countless, I'll say countless memories, and it's a recent one. Every week, every day, there's so many that pop up, but I'll be specific in this one, being that we have been talking about the state team and sort of the exposure that presents these players. So it refers back to, it was a quarterfinal. Obviously, our open women's team had made the quarterfinals in the Futsal Nationals at Parkerville. Exciting game, drawn up against New South Wales Lightning. Absolutely electrifying. That's all I can say. The game had finished, regular time had finished at 1-1. We had gone into extra time. So we're in the second period of extra time. It was about 40 seconds left at the time. The stadium was, as you can imagine, quite full. There was a really good atmosphere from people supporting both New South Wales and WA. But, of course, because we'd gone into extra time, we then started having the teams and the spectators for the next, which was a men's quarterfinal. So it was actually filling up. It was actually quite animated, and New South Wales were playing next. So you can imagine how exciting it was. But yeah, 40 seconds left to go. It's 1-1. We're heading into penalty shootout, knockout game of the Nationals quarterfinals. So exciting. Our goalkeeper, again, we're talking about the youth we've got in WA, absolutely fantastic. So Amalia Caceres, 16 at the time and still is 16, made a save. There was a pass into the back post. She made a tremendous save with 40 seconds left to go. Gets straight up. She sees Theodora Malthus, a.k.a. Joy, as we call her in the futsal world, making a run. So Amalia sees that opportunity and does a pinpoint throw. Joy runs onto it and finishes past the keeper. 34 seconds left to go in the game. The place, I'll say, erupted, because obviously there was a lot of New South Wales supporters and teams there, so they may not have erupted. They may have gone. I don't know. I don't know. But that moment there was just absolutely fantastic, just to sort of see what our girls did under pressure. It's such an exciting moment for me. Obviously, the remaining 34 seconds was hold on for dear life, and it was an extremely long 34 seconds, I can assure you. But as a coach, just, on the outside, you might not show it as much, but it just means so much to those players. What it means, especially when you are traveling so far and you're on the other side of Australia. You're galvanised as a squad because, you know what, you're WA and you're far away from home. Such a big commitment, and as you know, all the passion that goes into tournaments and all the experiences that go into it. So yeah, that was one of countless moments, which hopefully I hope to explain at the end of each podcast. But that's my contribution for this podcast.
Yeah, I watched that game, so it was a great game.
Oh, excellent! Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic, and like I said, we had some fantastic players in that squad, and what a performance! And that brings us to the end of our first episode. A huge thank you to our guest, Nestor Fonseca, for sharing such valuable insights into what is an excellent initiative by Football Australia. It was a real pleasure having you on the show, Nestor.
Thanks again. Thanks for the invite, and wish you well with the podcast.
Thank you. And of course, thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We've got more great conversations coming your way, so stay tuned. Until next time, vamos!